Cooter nuggets. Gone and fetch a bucket. We cock our ears across the yard. No one understands her toothless mouth. We watch from the porch. A turtle the size of a tire crosses the road, passes in front of the paused car that she is seated in. Cousin cuts across the field, dust flaps his calves, comes back, cutting in the house, clutches a white bucket, makes dust tracks. The turtle slips in the woods into a soft swamp. Y'all good for nothing. Her mouth fixed for some cooter nuggets. Stomps in the kitchen, curses our lackadaisicalness, cooing about cooter meat, presenting her careless grandchildren. We jump from the porch, our mouths fixed for blackberries. We fight briar patches, thorns scratch our arms, juice drips down our lips, ripe with joy. There is simplicity and joy in the arc of a turtle's back. Who knew this more than her?
Black Out Loud Media Group. Welcome back to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast, the place where poetry meets conversation. I'm your host, Terrence P. Elmore, and before we get into today's topic, make sure you hit that plus sign so you don't miss an episode. Also, please subscribe to my blog, thebrownssugarcafe.blog, and if you find any value in this episode or any other episodes, make sure you leave a heartfelt review. So with that being said, let's get to it.
My name is Jennifer Bartell Boykin. I am the poet laureate of the city of Columbia. I am also a teacher at Spring Valley High School. I'm currently studying to become a school librarian. I'm in USC's Master of Library and Information Science program. I'll finish up in 2 weeks.
Early congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a long time coming. It's been a long 2 years.
That poem you open up with.
Yeah.
What was the inspiration behind that?
So I write a lot with memory in my work, and that poem comes from a memory with my grandmother. And that poem, you're actually getting a sneak peek because that poem is in my second book of poetry that will come out later on this year. So the title of that one is Only Believe. And so this poem comes from a memory I had from, I must have been maybe 10, 11 years old. And my grandmother lived in this community called Muddy Creek in Hemingway, South Carolina. And we were all, everybody's at grandma's house during the summer and the weekends. So grandma was riding in a car. She was riding with somebody and they were stopped in the middle of the road. And now her house, we were like on the porch of her house, and her house was between the road and the house was like this big field. So she was yelling at us from the car to, I guess, get a bucket. She wanted us to get a bucket so she could get the turtle. And we didn't know what she was saying. And so the turtle just slowly made his way across the road and, was able to escape without becoming, cooter nuggets that day. But it comes from that memory. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Because I was sitting there wondering, like, cooter nuggets. What are those? So I'm guessing that's turtle.
Yeah. So cooter is a nickname for turtle, which people always have something to say about the word cooter, but it's a it's a nickname for a turtle. Yeah. So it was just humongous turtle that was crossing the road. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I'm a country.
Well, thank you.
I'm country, so that's like a really. I'm a country girl. So that's like a really country thing there. I've never had cooter nuggets, and I don't want them either.
Okay, because that was my next question. I was going to ask you how they taste.
I've never had them. I do not want them. That was grandma's thing.
Got it. Well, thank you for allowing us to hear that poem. And Speaking of, how you write from memory, you just, well, not just, but you recently released your debut poetry book, Traveling Mercy.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And yeah, so the opening poem, Traveling Mercy,
Mm-hmm.
what's the story behind that? And the whole book, I like how it takes you through these different stages. It goes from
Mm-hmm.
departures to arrivals and returns.
Yeah.
So how did you come up with the concept? And I guess I'll let you go ahead and explain.
Yeah, so it took years for me to come up with that concept because it took me about 8-10 years to publish the book, to get the book published. And so during the course of those years I was making revisions, and I was doing different things, and it really wasn't until the year before it was published, like that last round of revisions before it was accepted for publication, where I was
Okay.
like, okay, I'm time traveling. I'm traveling through history. I'm traveling through the memories of my neighbors, my elderly neighbors in my neighborhood, Bluefield. I'm traveling through my parents' memories, my own memories. So I'm kind of time traveling. And where I'm from, traveling mercy is a saying that just basically means, be safe on your travels, be safe
Yeah.
on your trip. And so that first poem wasn't always called Traveler Mercy. It's I think one time it was called the three muses of Bluefield, and I think it had maybe a couple other names. But once it clicked in my head, like, oh, I'm time traveling, not like
Yeah.
space getting in a machine and going back in time traveling, but I'm time traveling in this poem. Then it just kind of clicked that there's going to be departures and there's going to be arrivals and it's going to be return, because it's kind of a loop that time goes in throughout the book. But that specific poem has the memories of three women who were in my neighborhood, and that was Miss Goldie, Miss G, and Miss Blanche. And unfortunately, all of them are deceased. But the memories that are in there are their memories, in addition to their daughter, Miss Liz, who's also passed away as well. But anytime in that poem that you see anything italicized, those are their words that they told to me when I interviewed them. So the reason I interviewed them is because I had so I did the MFA degree at USC, and I wanted to do something. I didn't want to just write poems and that's it. I wanted my poems to do something. And there was a lot of cancer in our neighborhood, and I was trying to figure out, like, okay, where is this cancer coming from? What's
Of
causing
course.
it?
Yeah.
And so I took it upon myself to be like the poetic Aaron Brockovich. And so I was doing soil samples and water samples. Well, a lot of people had wells at that time, and so I was doing water samples, well samples, and I was interviewing people in the neighborhood just to kind of get their history, their personal history, like when did you come to Bluefield? Why did you come to Bluefield? And so in the poem, when they're talking about, in the poem, I make reference to the fact that not a lot of people were selling land to Black people during the time. And this is like the, 60s.
Right.
Not a lot of people were selling land to Black people. Black people didn't have home ownership as an option for a long time. And so the founding of our neighborhood was one option for Black people. Yeah.
I love the reference of okra in the poem.
Yeah.
Did you like okra growing up? Because I'm gonna be honest, I didn't start liking okra until I was an adult, and being from the Low Country, that's something that seemed like my parents loved to have, and I didn't get it until I got older, and now I just can't get enough of it.
Yeah. I think, I always liked fried okra, the breaded and fried okra.
Yeah.
But it's like, my dad he would cut up an okra. He would, literally, 'cause my dad always had vegetable gardens. So my dad he would pick some okra out of the garden and just, wash it and cut it up and put it in a pan and just cook it up like that. And it would be all slimy. So I don't like the slimy
Me
okra.
either. Yeah. I think that's what ruined it for me.
So you would eat it with some rice and like some chicken, and it was that was the meal. But they also would put it with some beans, like some butter beans, and or some cow peas or something. And
Yeah.
they would eat them like that too. Now I would eat those beans, but I'm not eating okra like that. So
Okay.
so growing up, not so much. And then recently, I tried pickled okra. Have you had pickled okra before?
I want to. I think Tabitha has some, Tabitha Brown. We haven't had a chance to taste it yet. So how is it?
They're pretty good. They're pretty good. It's
Okay.
one of those things where you're like pickled okra. Ooh, it's like it sounds like it'd be disgusting, but they taste pretty good.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I've had some some okra chips before, and those were actually pretty good.
Oh, I
So
have to try those. I haven't tried those yet.
yeah, I think I want to say the last place we got them from is possibly Trader Joe's. I'm
Oh,
not sure. I have to ask my wife, but don't quote me on that. I'll let you know later.
yeah. Let me know. I haven't tried. I think I seen those in the store, but I'm kind of like I don't know, y'all. A okra chip, but
It's good. Yeah. Yeah. It's
okay.
good.
I'm gonna have to try those.
So Bluefield, South Carolina, I must be honest, this is a place that I'm not familiar with.
Yeah.
Um what, first of all, what was it like growing up there?
Well, Bluefield it's the name of the community, and then
Okay.
Bluefield is in Johnsonville, South Carolina, which is in Florence County, hour away from Florence, hour away from Myrtle Beach. So it's you wouldn't know Bluefield unless you're from Johnsonville. Like
Okay, okay.
unless you're from Johnsonville, Hemingway, you're not gonna know Bluefield. Um it was a great neighborhood. It was a great place to grow up. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody looked out for each other. Most of our neighbors had vegetable. So I talked about my dad's vegetable garden, but most everybody had vegetable gardens. And then half of the people had chickens. So they had chicken coops. So we would hear roosters all day long growing up. And it was just, I remember there being like a lot of kids. So there were a lot of kids like my age, my brother's age. I have two older brothers. So it was always like people our age in the
Oh
neighborhood.
man, yeah.
And we would be playing and riding bikes and, just doing all kinds of stuff. So those are the memories I had of growing up there. And then by the time I got to my teenage years, we started getting drugs in the neighborhood, unfortunately. And,
Yeah.
people in the neighborhood, some of the people in the neighborhood started dealing drugs, and then people would come into the neighborhood to get drugs. So things kind of changed after that. But prior to that time, I have great, wonderful memories of growing up there.
Yeah, it sounds like, and then from reading some of your poems, of course, I'm not finished reading your book yet. Whenever I read other poets' work, I like to take my time
Yeah.
and go through it,
Oh
you
yeah,
know.
I
So
understand. I understand. Mm-hmm.
I like to digest it. But from the poems that I have read, I get that sense of community.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm reading your poem, I get that sense of home and that sense of just enjoyment, and that's something
Yeah.
that we really don't have much of now. Like, we don't really know our neighbors. Nobody really talks to anybody, and then we had the pandemic, so it just made it worse.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, one thing that we used to do is like look out for each other. So my dad had like a lot of tomatoes in the garden one year. He would take some to the neighbors. He would, spread it out, and he would take some to them and, share with them. And so, it's just, yeah, you're right. It's that sense of community has been lost, and what I don't know why. It's like, is it because of like just living in a capitalist society and we're all just kind of working, we on the grind, we just trying to, make a living. But I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely a different dynamic now. And there's so many other things that exist now that didn't exist back then. There was no internet. There was no
Right.
internet. There were no there were no mobile phones,
Man,
like
I had a pager in high school.
oh,
Yeah,
you was
so
fancy. Oh, he was fancy. Had a pager, dog. And you say that to a young kid, I had a pager, they're gonna be like, what? And then you
was
explain it. You explain it to them and like, why didn't you just like send them a
Yeah,
message?
yeah. The pager was crazy, and I had one that had voicemail, so,
Oh,
thankfully back then when somebody left you a voicemail, they actually told you what they needed instead of just saying, "Call me back." And so
yeah.
I could listen to the voice message and know what they needed. But that having to like no cell phones, having to have either change in your pockets or a calling card.
Yeah, payphones, right?
Yes, everywhere you looked, there was a payphone. And that was a major thing. And like even when I went to college, it was you had to have your calling
Yeah,
card so you can call home.
same.
And depending on where you lived, if you could probably go to like a neighboring town, and it's not even that far, but it's outside of your calling area. So then the call would be long distance. So you would definitely need a calling card. So it's just stuff like that these kids will never understand.
Yeah, I was at a poetry reading with um well, it wasn't a reading. She did a craft talk, Robin Cost Lewis, and she was talking
Okay.
about call and collect from college.
Oh,
And then,
yeah.
she was like, certain crowds, she has to explain what that means, call and collect, because young people today, they have no clue. They have no clue the
None.
struggles we had to go through.
The struggles when the phones didn't have call waiting. It's like the phone just kept beeping,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Or caller
I had to.
ID.
Yeah, I remember the embarrassment of you being on the phone too long, and then somebody calling the operator to interrupt the phone call.
Yeah, yeah. That seems like that was so long ago.
Yeah, it's stuff like that I think that adds to the loss of like the sense of community.
Mhm.
I remember we were talking about this. I forgot what anniversary it is, but Hurricane Hugo.
Yeah.
Like we talked about that, and I was living in North Charleston at the time, and I was about 7 or 8, and
Mhm.
everybody was looking out for each other. Like afterwards, we didn't have any power.
Yeah.
The water was dirty; you couldn't drink or eat it. But then everybody looked out for each other and made sure that people had stuff.
Mhm.
People had stuff in the freezers that it was going to go bad anyway. So it was like a cookout every
Yep.
day, just throwing stuff on the grill, making sure people had something to eat.
Yep.
And I often wonder, sadly, if something like that was to happen, or would people kind of rally together, or just kind of keep stuff to themselves?
Yeah. That's interesting to think about because I remember Hugo and we're like an hour away from the coast, so we didn't have lights and anything for a long time. But I was talking to somebody about this a few months ago, and I was like, we were never hungry. Like we ate.
Right? Exactly.
Between the grill and my dad had like this little gas thing where he could like put a pot on it and stuff. And so we was eating good and we were fine and everybody helped everybody out and it was okay. But I think also that's a good thing to think about because I think our parents and their parents had to have this type of resourcefulness that
Yes.
we didn't have to have growing up.
Yes.
So a lot of things they had to kind of work hard for and figure out. We didn't have to, and then the kids, that's the next generation, they really, don't have that aspect either. And it's like it's one of those things like how do you develop something like that?
I think it's going to take just somebody caring enough to say, "Hey, my name is so and so. It's nice to meet you. What's your name?" And just kind of start a dialogue, like having these type of conversations. And you would think with social media, that's something that's supposed to bring people together. It feels like it pushes people further apart, and that's just so odd to
Yeah.
me.
That's really a lot of people on social media feel isolated and they feel
Yeah.
alone. And it's like, oh, you got 1,000 friends, you got 1,000 followers, but you feel you don't have any real connections to people outside of social media. Yeah, and I think that's really dangerous too because a lot of people think that real life is online and it's not.
No,
It's not.
no, it is not.
Yeah.
So, how did you get started with poetry? What was that moment where you were like, "This is what I want to do"?
So this is a really country moment too. So um I was in Bluefield, I was in the neighborhood, and, I always loved words, always loved reading. So I was playing by myself one day, and I was jumping a ditch because, jumping ditches is like a
That was
pastime.
fun.
Right, that was
Yes.
fun. Right. See, you get it. I have to explain that to people. Like we did it like, let's see if I can clear this ditch. Am I gonna fall in the water?
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's see what happens. So I jumped the ditch, and when I jumped the ditch, I heard these words. Like it was like somebody spoke some words to me. And I don't remember the exact words, but it was something like, as 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 the bird sings, I'll be free again, or something like that. So I went into the house to write down the lines, and when I wrote them down, it came out as a poem. And I've been writing poetry since then. So I just kept writing. I wrote another one. I was like, "Ooh!" I liked that I was able to express myself, and I also felt like I was speaking for and my ancestors and those who couldn't learn to read and write because it was illegal, right?
Yeah.
um and didn't have a voice. So part of me feels like I'm giving voice to the voiceless. And so that's kind of how I started. And after a certain amount of time, I'm like, this is what I want to do. I want to be a writer. So yeah.
That is the most interesting origin story that I've heard so far. I thought I heard, something really amazing with my last guest. He said that he just found a book
Mm,
and he can't remember what the name of the book or anything, and it just had poems in it. And he was reading it and he started passing the poems off for himself, and then it got him really into it
hmm.
and writing poetry. And then he said he can't find the book and could never find it again.
Oh no.
And this, but you top that.
It's the countryest thing you ever heard in your life. It's just like jumping ditches.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's
You gotta know, you gotta be there to know. It's like
yeah, you got to, because my grandparents lived in St. George, and they had a ditch across the street from their house. So it was like the street, the ditch, and a railroad track.
oh, oh, that sounds like fun.
Yes. So it was always this thing about
Hmm.
jumping across the ditch. And I know my mom, aunts and uncles probably listening now, but jumping across the ditch and trying to make it to the other side, because that ditch was kind of deep. It wasn't like your
Mm.
little short ditch that if you didn't make it, then you'd be all right. No, this was a deep ditch, but we would kind
Oh,
of try to jump over it. Yeah.
so you was risking your life.
Yeah, you know how boys are. It's a lot of dangerous stuff we did at my grandparents' house that I just look at now and just like, what were we thinking?
Like that's interesting because I have those moments too. Because we used to walk to the store from my
Yes.
grandma's house to like this little general store. And it must have been like 1.5 miles or something to the store. And
Yes.
we would walk to the store to go get some candy or some a honey bun with a hunk of cheese. Like just a little Debbie cake. So just like we
Yeah.
would be walking on the road, and then once in a while somebody would stop and be like, "Hey, you need a ride?" And we'd be like, "No, we're good," because we know if we got in the car with somebody, we'd get in even more trouble.
Yes.
So, but we would just walk to the store like it was nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah. By ourselves. It would just be us. We wouldn't have an adult in sight. We would just walk to the store with our pennies,
Yeah.
with probably $1, could get like a bunch of stuff for $1.
Yeah, I say almost the whole store for $1.
They have
One of
like,
each. Give me it all.
oh my gosh, those were the days.
Yeah. I miss those times, man. I'm glad that I grew up when I did, because things were simpler and a
Yeah.
lot of fun. And yeah, I miss those times.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, you're a teacher
Yes.
and you teach creative writing in English.
Yes.
How, well, this might be, poetry. I mean, you heard a voice jumping over a ditch, but how did you
I-
want to become a teacher?
okay, so
And
this
teach. Yeah.
It's it's a long story. So when I was in high school, I had a teacher named Miss Silvernail, and Miss Silvernail was I had for English 3 honors in advanced composition, and she would always come by my desk and she'd be like, Jenny B, that's what they call me in school. Jenny B, you're gonna be a teacher one day. And I was like, why would I want to do something like that? And so so when I went to school, I majored in English Lit creative writing because I knew I wanted to be a
Okay.
writer.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't on my radar at all. I graduated and I came back to South Carolina and I got a job working as a journalist at the newspaper. And so this is a newspaper in Marion County. And so I worked at the newspaper, and while working at the newspaper, I covered a lot of education stories. So I was at school board meetings, or I was talking to superintendent about something, or I was interviewing teachers or cafeteria workers, and so I was in school settings, education settings a lot. And through that I found out about a program called PACE, Program of Alternative Certification for Educators, where if you didn't, major in education, it gives you a pathway to get
Yes.
certified as an educator. And I was like, oh, if I ever think about teaching, that's, a path that I could take. And just the more as time went by, and I was like, I think I do want to teach. I think I'm gonna answer the call because it was a shortage then. And this is 2007. It was a shortage. Of course, there's still a shortage today.
Yes.
But I was like, okay, well, let me just try it out and see. And so I applied for the PACE program. I applied to schools all over the place. And the only one that would take me was Carolina Forest High School in Horry County in Myrtle Beach. And so Miss Silvernail actually wrote me a letter of recommendation for that
Okay. I know she
position.
did.
And I was there 3 years, and then after 3 years, I came here to Columbia to go to the USC graduate program, the MFA program. And so I came here for that. And then I taught at Coastal for a year, Coastal Carolina University. And then I was trying to decide, do I want to go back to high school or do I want to do this college thing? And then I decided, I really love high school kids. I'm gonna go back to high school. And so I call now Miss Silvernail at this time. She's not at Johnsonville High School anymore. She's at Spring Valley High School as an assistant principal. And so I called she's Dr. Silvernail at this point. She got a doctorate degree. So I was like, y'all got any positions open for English? And she was like, yeah, come on and interview. And I did. And that's how I got the job at Spring Valley. That's how I ended up at Spring Valley. But, teaching is, to me, like teaching is an extension of my writing. So I get to share with students something I'm very passionate about because I love literature and I love writing. And so I get to share that with them, and I get to share the power of words, like the power of reading words and understanding what you're reading, and then using words to write your own things, to write your own ideas. So to me, it's like a natural extension of my poetry and my writing practice. So I feel like my writing practice and my teaching practice are, interconnected.
You're making me think back to when I was in high school. I had a literature teacher. Her name was Miss Oshinsky. Fortunately, she's no longer with us, but she had a passion for words and writing as well, and she was able to bring that out of me even more. Like I fell in love with poetry in elementary school, Harlem Renaissance, Langston Hughes. I was like, man, this is pretty cool. And writing essays in her class, she wouldn't allow me to just do the bare minimum.
Yeah.
She would draw like a red line through that paper real quick, especially because I had her in 11th grade and 12th grade, because when I moved up, she happened to move up as well. And
okay,
the first day of class, we were doing essays, and she read the first 2 lines, and then she drew a red line through it, and she was like, "Terrence, you know better than this." And she just sent me back to my seat. And I was like, well, I'm back in there. And it was always a fun class for me. And I can tell the other students who really didn't care about literature or writing and things like that, because even though it was an honors level course, it's still, you had to want to be there.
Yeah.
because we were reading things I wasn't interested in, but it was part of the curriculum. But it just being in that class and how she would break things down, like when we had like reading assignments and then we come back and she would go over it, it brought like new fascination to certain things, like things I wouldn't have been interested in.
Mhm.
I know this might sound weird, but I've never been like really into Shakespeare like that.
Mhm.
But having her class, it opened my mind to it, especially when we read Othello. I started to get it then, and I think it had a lot to do with her teaching and her
Mhm.
passion for literature and reading and writing. So
Yeah.
you making me wish I was in your class. I know your students have a good time.
They, I don't know if they would say that, but
They'll thank you. They probably not saying it now with the assignments you give, but they'll thank you.
that's the thing about teaching. It's like I like to compare teaching and parenting, because it's like you really don't know if you're doing a good job until later. And then,
Yeah.
the kids will be like, "Hey, I remember when you did that," and you're like, "Oh, they was paying attention to what was going on. Okay, I guess I did a decent job."
Yes. So you said something earlier that stuck out to me as well. You said that you're currently studying to become a librarian,
Yes.
and 2 weeks from now you will be complete. How did you get on that journey?
Okay,
Because
so
I think being a librarian is so cool.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. I'm so excited about it. I again, it's an extension of my teaching actually. So I'm one of the things I do in my classroom is most of my classes, not all, would do independent reading, and so they get to choose what book they read, and then they read it, and they have some type of accountability assignment with that book. A lot of students will come to high school and they just hate reading with a passion. So they'll say, I don't like to read, or they'll say, well, I don't know what I like to read. And so one of the things I always did was, we would go to the library every other week as a class, like, okay, get a book. And so I would help students pick books. We're like, okay, well, what do you like to read usually? And they'd be like, oh, I like horror, or I like romance, or whatever. I like sports books. And so trying to, link the kid with a book that they would be interested in and actually read. And so I've been doing that for a few years, and our school librarian was like, "You should be a librarian. You should go and get the master's degree and be a librarian." And so then it was like she did that for like another additional 3 years, and then 2 or 3 years, and then I was like, you know what? I think I do want to be a librarian. Let me check out how the program works, and what it is and stuff. So it's a completely online program. It's completely virtual. So I didn't have to, stop working or anything. So I've been taking 2 classes per semester, including summers, to finish up in 2 years flat. So I started in summer of 2022, and I'll be done in 2 weeks.
Man, congratulations again. My
Thank you.
my one of my aunts was a librarian, and I think that's why. Matter of fact, I know that's why I find it so fascinating
Mm.
when somebody wants to become a librarian. She was really into books, and she always
Mhm.
had a bunch of. I just remember her always having a bunch of books in her house. And
Yeah.
one of the funny things about it is when I remember when computers first became a thing, she was showing me, everything about the computers and stuff. And then
Yeah.
over time, I was the one showing her different things. And I thought that was pretty fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. It is fascinating. And a lot of things, the thing about the degree, it's a Master of Library and Information Science. And so what a lot of people don't realize is like there's more to being a librarian than just books. And so you have the technology aspect, because a lot of the way we get information these days is through technology. And so as a librarian, I got to be on top of the technology, what's new, what's happening with the technology. And then in a school setting, what are the ways that teachers can use the technology to teach to teach students, and also teaching students how to use the information that they find responsibly, and determining what information is credible or a valid source and which not, what's fake news, and all of that. Digital citizenship, all of that falls under school librarianship. So it's not just, oh, you got this room full of books and that's it. It's
Right.
it's a lot more complex than that.
Yes. Yes, it
Hmm.
is. And for those of my listeners who haven't been to the library lately, just go into your local library and you'll see the change, especially from when we were
Yes.
kids.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Cuz what kind, are you in Richland County or what county are you in?
Yes, 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 Richland County.
Yes, it's amazing what Richland Library has with. They
Amazing.
got the library of stuff where you can check out appliances and different things. You can go record a podcast. You can record a song. There's like a music studio, I think, in the North Main one. It's all kinds of things. It's
All
not,
kinds of
yeah.
things.
It's
Yes.
and then they have events and different programming, and social workers are at most of them too. So I mean, it's your tax dollars are paying for those public libraries. So
Yes. Yes. Go check them out,
go
please,
use
people.
them. Yes.
It's a lot to do in the library. Even and I
Yeah.
always thought there was a lot to do in the library, like growing up, but it's so drastic now. I remember when I was young, when I first found out that you could check out movies from the
Oh
library.
yeah.
That really shocked me. And then CDs and
Mm-hmm.
it's just a whole lot of things now, especially with audiobooks and things. They have apps now where
Oh
you can
yeah.
download digital books or audio books. I
Yep.
mean, the library is still a cool thing. It's
Yes.
even cooler now because of all the technology. So
Yeah.
once again, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, tell me that in 2 weeks when I finish.
I will. I'm gonna remember.
When I finish everything. Well, no, hold on. 2 weeks. No, it's 1 week. Wait.
1 week.
Yeah, I think everything is due next Friday. Yeah, I think I got one more week. Why I keep saying 2 weeks? Because this week was the first. Okay, yeah, it's 1 week.
Okay, so this episode is going to air last Tuesday of National Poetry Month. So
Oh,
that's what, the
nice.
30th. So yeah,
Oh, I'll be done by then.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll be done
So
by then.
by the time this comes out, yeah.
I'll be golden by then.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's one thing about you that most people don't know that you wish that a lot more people knew?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah. One thing I wish people knew. Uh, I guess one thing I wish people knew is that I'm actually an introvert. Uh, I may be out there and doing different things, and I may look like I'm an extrovert, but I am indeed not an extrovert. So it takes a lot for me to kind of put myself out there for different things. And I'm a lot more comfortable with it now than I've been in the past. But I also have my times where I just need to rest and
Yeah.
recharge. I love people, but I can't be around people too much because it's draining.
Yeah.
Um, not that people are annoying or anything. I just need some downtime. So sometimes I'm not gonna come to stuff all the time.
Understandable. Yeah. You got
I'm not, it's nothing personal. I just,
right.
like there's a great event happening tonight in Columbia. And I'm just like, I gotta get my mind together. I gotta get my life together. I gotta finish
Yeah.
up this work. I'm not gonna go to that, but I'll go to these other things on Sunday. So I can't make it to everything. So and I probably shouldn't even if I could. So just pacing. I'm an introvert. I need my time. I need rest and relaxation because then I'm miserable to everyone who encounters me, and that's not good.
We all need that time to recharge. I had the Charleston Poet Laureate on here earlier,
Yay, Asia
and
May!
yeah, she said the same thing. It's like just
Yeah, I talk to Asia May about that all the time.
hey,
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. It's just like, I'm gonna be outside. I was like, okay, make sure you get some rest too. Take
Yes.
care of yourself. Drink some water. Stay hydrated. Oh, Lord.
How is your National Poetry Month going so far? Well, like I said, by the time this airs, it would have been
Yeah.
over. But how's it going?
It's going well. So we're doing a couple of initiatives, and you participated in one of those. So we got the Celebrating 30 Columbia Poets,
Yes.
and that is on my Instagram. So even it's on my Instagram and my Facebook. And even after Poetry Month, that'll still be up there, so people can always go back and look at who those different poets are. So we have that, and then we have I've been trying to share out as many flyers as I can of the different events poets are having in the city. Because as I like to say, Columbia has a vibrant poetry and spoken word community, and people are always having events and open
Yes.
mics, and there's always an opportunity to do something with poetry in the city at least once a week. This month has been very, very busy for everyone. A lot of people have had events. So this month though, I have also had an open mic on April 11th for USC's Women's and Gender Studies department, which I'm also a graduate of. And then on the 27th, April 27th, there'll be another open mic. I'll be doing a reading from my poetry book, Traveling Mercy, on April 25th at the South Carolina State Library.
Yes, I'm signed up for that already.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then coming up, this is the biggie. June 22nd, mark your calendars. June 22nd is the date for the Soda City Poetry Festival, which will be in Richland Library, Maine. So it'll
Yes.
be the one
Yes.
right on off of Assembly. So I'm partnering with them, and the Soda City Poetry Festival is made possible by the fellowship that I got from the Academy of American Poets. So the Poet Laureate Fellowship from the Academy of American Poets is helping fund a lot of that. So yeah, a lot of it. So yeah, so it's going to be a day of workshops, poetic conversations, readings. We're going to have some youth showcases highlighting the young poets in the city. And so it's going to be a good time. It's free. We're going to have some vendors out there selling some merch and books and stuff like that. So it's a day-long festival, and it's going to be it's going to be a really fun day. And I'll be pushing out information with that in the next month and a half.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Good. Good.
Yeah.
And you always do an excellent job with sharing information. I don't always see it because of how the algorithm
I
works,
know. It's like
but
you see stuff 5 days after, and you're like, what? Oh,
yeah,
I
yeah,
know.
like
I
that
hate that.
poetry at the library thing, I didn't see it till the day after, and I was like, man, I would have really came to this.
Yeah, it's terrible. I know it's terrible.
But I do appreciate how you keep everybody informed and what you're doing to spotlight poetry in the city. And thank you again for coming on the show and sharing some time with me. I,
Oh,
I really
no.
appreciate that as well.
Thank you for
Yeah.
inviting me. I know it took me a while to respond back, but thank you for inviting me.
Oh no, that's okay. I'm so glad it worked out. Before I let you get out of here, is there anything else you want to share with anybody? How they can get in contact with you, or anything else that you didn't cover?
Oh yeah, sure. So I'll plug the Soda City Poetry Festival. If you go on Eventbrite, there's already an event set up for it. Like I said, it's free, but we do want people to register just so we can kind of gauge how many people are gonna come. So go on Eventbrite to check that out. And also if you search Soda City Poetry Festival.com or search it on social media, you should find the website. We don't have a lot on there right now, but we will be adding stuff in the coming weeks. So do that to stay updated. You can go to Columbia Poet on Instagram to see all of the 30 poets. So by the time this comes out, all 30 poets will be up on Instagram and on Facebook. My Facebook is Columbia SC Poet Laureate, and the same information that's on the Instagram is on the Facebook. So if you one of those people that has one but not the other, go to whichever one you have.
Got you covered, yeah.
And then lastly, I keep forgetting to do this, but you can purchase Travel and Mercy by
Yes.
you can go to Amazon. It's on Amazon. Hardcover is available on Amazon as well. Or you can go to finishinglinepress.com and put in Jennifer Bartell, Travel and Mercy, and you should be able to find it that way.
Yeah, thank you. I got mine signed by you. So
Hey.
thank you again. Thank you again for spending some time with us. And as always, to my listeners, remember, keep pushing forward. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Terrence P. Elmore, and this is the place where poetry meets conversation. Hit that follow button and turn on your notifications so you won't miss an episode. Check out my blog, thebrownsugarcafe.blog. Also connect with me on Instagram at thebrownsugarcafe. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and as always, remember, keep pushing forward.